So one of the most common, most popular things right now that you're seeing everywhere, it's hit all sorts of marketplaces, is kombucha in all sorts of different flavors, in all sorts of health food stores. And this is something that we can make at home. So I'm going to go through just a really basic, simple version of kombucha, and then we're also going to do a second ferment where then you can flavor it and play around with getting a little more fizziness. Let's talk a little bit about what kombucha is. We're taking a colony of bacteria and yeast and we're feeding it. And we're feeding it sugar and caffeine. Okay, and this colony actually, some scobies, which is what we call the mother in kombucha, is a symbiotic colony of bacteria and yeast. And so what happens is that we're feeding this symbiotic colony of bacteria and yeast sugar and caffeine, and it's converting it into a probiotic drink. There's kind of a heated debate around right now about using just plain white sugar, refined white sugar, versus different types of sweeteners for making kombucha, okay? And technically speaking, they do say that the SCOBY likes the cleanest sugar possible. So white sugar may be the best, although just because in my kitchen I don't often have white sugar, I have palm sugar, raw cane sugar, different types of like panela sugar. So I will use alternative, like let's say hippie sugars or more raw, less processed sugars. And I do get good results with my kombucha. But if you have just plain white sugar, that's also a really simple way to go about it. This is a very simple process. We're going to put a liter of water in a pot. And we're going to take a half a cup of sugar. And we're going to bring that to a boil. So we brought the pot to a boil. We're just going to add our tea bags, and the ratio is very simple. We've got 1 liter of water, half a cup of sugar, 2 to 3 tea bags, depending how big the tea bags are, of either a black or green tea, something caffeinated. We're going to turn it off, and we'll let those steep in there for 15 minutes. So we've let our tea steep here. I'm going to give it a squeeze, get some of that loveliness out of there, and then we want to pour it into our jar and let it cool. You don't want to add hot liquid to your SCOBY or you'll kill it, okay? And now we're going to dig into our kombucha. Okay, this is one that's already been brewing. We're going to go in and just kind of feel around. I'm going to show you and touch the SCOBY a bit so you can get an idea of the texture of what it should look like. And then we're going to do a second ferment. We're going to make an orange, elderberry, and hibiscus second ferment. So that's what we do, is we make a basic green tea or black tea and sugar starter. And then once we have that kombucha going and we've brewed that, then we're going to do the second ferment and we're going to flavor it. So we're going to reach in and just pull some of this off. And you can see the texture of that. It's very gelatinous. It's very much like a type of mushroom. And we're going to take a little bit of that one out. I'm going to take some of this part as well. And then I'm going to pour some of that in there, as that's going to be what we're going to use to start our new batch. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit of the mother liquid, a little bit of the SCOBY, the mother starter, that's going to then create the next batch. Once you have it and it's going, it keeps proliferating, and you can share it with your friends, and it becomes this living organism to the point where it could be kind of like part of your family. So Lena, who generously provided this SCOBY and kombucha batch today, she's named this Bill, okay? And so it's become part of her family. And when I used some of Bill in my last class, her son was here and he was like, "No, don't cut up Bill." It's become something that every couple of weeks you feed, and depending on the heat of your house, it can happen a little bit faster in the warmer months and a bit slower in the colder months. So a kombucha batch that we're going to make today, when we feed it, maybe within a week, it would be ready to then bottle into a second fermentation. But if you wanted to get it really zingy and sour to the point where you don't taste much sugar anymore and it tastes almost like an apple cider vinegar, that's going to take probably 2 to 3 weeks. So when we're doing the second fermentation, what we want to think of is we want possibly even stop our first fermentation a little early when it still has a tiny bit of sweetness, even if we like it a little zingier, and to get that like really carbonated, bubbly kombucha, real fizzy, which is what I like. I like the sharpness of that like nice carbonation. So we're going to build up the CO2, and what we do is we're going to put the first fermentation that we have allowed the escape of gases. Now we're going to close it off. And when we close it off, we're also going to add a little bit more sugar in the form of either an ounce or two of fruit juice, a tiny bit more sweetener, or some type of dried or fresh fruit. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to put in some fresh orange. We're going to add some hibiscus. And then we're going to add some little dried elderberries. Now, elderberries have a long history of being very medicinal, especially in cold and flu season. So the idea is that when we're making these delicious, tasty foods, we're also making nutritious foods with a lot of health benefits. We're growing something in our home and we're feeding it, we're even naming it, it's becoming part of our family. Then we're also using these special techniques to put some different herbs and spices and just get playful with it, where you're then creating, you know, this old concept that let food be thy medicine, right? But enjoy it, right? Feel the pleasure that you get from the whole experience of making it, drinking it, and then having your body be nourished by it. So we're going to add our first ferment now into a bottle that has an airlock and a little bit of fresh fruit that it's then going to feed off and create some more carbonation. Okay, so you can already see that it's a little fizzy, right? Your first ferment will have bubbles in it. They'll be very tiny. I like to call them kind of like champagne bubbles. They're very small. And then by doing the second ferment, we're going to create more of an intense carbonation. So we're going to seal this. I'm just going to tip it over so those little bits of orange at the top get washed in. And we're going to set that to the side and give it about anywhere from 2 to 4 days at room temperature to create that carbonation, and then you're going to want to put it in the fridge. Now, one thing to note when you're making the carbonated version is you need to have a bottle that is supposed to have carbonated liquid in it that's strong enough to not explode when it gets very carbonated, okay? So you don't necessarily want to just put it into a thinner mason jar. You want to put it into some type of thick bottle like this with a closed top lid. Possibly the other good thing is you can use a kombucha bottle that maybe you've bought at the store with a sealable lid, and then you know that, okay, this bottle was designed to have carbonation in it, and you're not going to run the risk of having, you know, in the middle of the night your mason jar explode in your kitchen because there was too much carbonation going on. Okay, so now this is going to be our beautiful orange, elderberry, and hibiscus kombucha.